I've just got back from my local police station after reporting a horrific robbery that took place at roughly 3 a.m. yesterday morning. I witnessed 11 Indians hailing from Mumbai stealing 2 points in front of 20,000 upset Delhi fans in the space of 3 balls. But it only makes sense that the only team undefeated this season goes down to a team that was struggling in second last. On that notion, remember SRH, the team that couldn't get above 160 in 3 innings? Well, Abhishek almost did that by himself, scoring 141 in 55 balls to chase down 250. And if you still need more icing on your cake, CSK, the team that have lost 5 in a row, just beat LSG, who are absolutely flying. Oh yeah, and Karun Nairs is back. So let's change it up this week and leave SRH for last, despite them having an absolutely insane game yet again. But I always feel like I end up speaking about Sunrisers just because it seems every game is wild. They either have a record-breaking win or get absolutely smoked. There's no in between. I just end up talking about it. So I'm not going to fall for the trap this week, and we're going to just jump right in to Mumbai versus Delhi, because to be honest, they actually got outdone. It was a more exciting game than the Sunrisers game this week, believe it or not, because this game literally had everything that you want in a T20. You thought that Mumbai were amazing to get to 205 after being sent in on a deck that was decent to bat, but it was still doing a bit. Let's be honest, it was still doing a bit. And I thought that probably around the 185 mark was par, and then they just had these 3-over blitzes in the middle of the innings, and then obviously at the end as well, that really just got their score up there. But then Delhi came in to bat and go absolutely bananas for the first 10 overs, besides Jake Fraser McGurk picking up his usual score of less than 10 and absolutely boiling my blood, but I'll speak more about him later. Anyway, Perel and Nair were absolutely flying, and even when Perel got out, they were still 135 for 2 at one point at around the 11th over mark, and just so far ahead in the game that I was watching it at 2 a.m. or whatever, and I was falling asleep. The win predictor, even though that doesn't really mean much, had them at about 80% around the 11th over, and then all of a sudden, wicket after wicket kept falling, the runs were drying up, and then somehow Mumbai is on top of the game after looking really just down and out, and then right up until the last over, even though Mumbai are on top, DC did just enough to keep themselves in the game before absolutely losing their minds and getting run out 3 balls in a row. Now, obviously, all the headlines are going to be on the 3 run outs, and yes, they were bad, especially the last 2, but I think most of the responsibility, and actually like where the game was really lost, was probably a little bit on the bowling, but more so the middle order, like players like Rahul, Patel, and Stubbs. Now, apart from Patel, they're all having good seasons, so this is in no way like a dig. They're not playing their role, they're not pulling their weight. It was just in this situation where they were in the game, they just struggled so much to get the ball away and ended up drawing the scoring and making the run rate look pretty bad. But then they all also got out pretty cheaply as well, which then gave the bowlers the opportunity to look like clowns. And boy, did they do that well. Now, I'll give an excuse to Sharma because he was scoring and he did have a reason to try go for that second run so he could keep the strike for the rest of the over. It was still only 3 balls in the over. Fair enough that you're pushing that second. Kuldeep, on the other hand, probably did not need to push that too. I'm not sure if it's because he wanted to face the last ball of the over and try hit a boundary, or if it was so he could face the last ball and give Stark the strike the next over. Either way, it was a little bit risky. It's especially risky when you're running with extra large pads on. I mean, I don't know if it's the camera angle that's just doing him really dirty or it's the running technique, but he looked like a kid in juniors playing about 5 years up, wearing pads of someone 10 years older than him. It was like Bambi on ice. I mean, when he hit the ball, he was pretty slow out of the gate. I thought there was actually 2 in it. When he called for the second, I didn't think it was that dangerous. But it's like when you're dreaming and you're running in your dreams and you just want to go really fast, but you're just kind of running on the spot. That's what it felt like. Now, the last one, I probably don't even have to say anything. I mean, the only possible excuse that I could even come up for Mohit is that Stark did take a couple of steps down the wicket, which might have made Mohit think that the run was on, but it was, look, I'm just trying to look for an excuse for him. The fact is he absolutely spanked it to a player and has called for a run after watching two of his teammates get barbecued the 2 balls before that. It was just insane. I mean, at least try use up your final over. It was, just a complete lapse in concentration, which somehow happened 2 balls in a row. But let's move a little bit more player specific, because there has been 2 players for DC that really haven't got going this season, and one player I'm not overly surprised about, but the other player I honestly thought was going to be one of the best players in the IPL this season, and he's doing almost as bad, and that's JFM and Patel. Now, JFM has got to be one of the most frustrating cases I've ever seen, because we all know the talent is there. I mean, we have all seen his ability to hit big, and yes, I guess some people are going to say, well, he can't really defend. If the ball's doing something, he's not really there. His first class average sucks, all of that. And look, I'm not saying that he's test ready or he should be in the test side, or maybe even his place in the ODI side is questionable or anything like that. But I honestly think he can be a great T20 player, and he can be one now. I mean, last season he was smoking the exact same bowlers for the same team in the IPL. I mean, yes, obviously the pitches were roads, it was much easier to bat on, but you're still going against the same caliber of the bowling. I just feel like he is going at absolute everything, and I mean absolute everything. I felt like when he had that dream period, and don't get me wrong, he was still striking the ball at a rate that was pretty much unheard of, but it still looked like he was at least picking his balls a little bit. He still left or defended the odd ball while still unleashing at about 80% of them, but he still would watch the ball and pick the balls to go for. Whereas now, I mean, obviously it's a bit hard for me to say as an armchair spectator. He's a much better player than I am. He has much better coaches than I ever had, but it's so hard to see how this is a sustainable approach, going at every single ball, literally from the first ball. And it's, I guess the case is almost similar to the what I was saying about SRH last game. Is, do you just let him play his natural game and hope that he comes good and overcomes this? Or do you change it up? Because, like I said, it's just, he's had a pretty bad run of form for a long time now, and it's just hard to see him overcome that by just attacking every single ball. Maybe that's just his natural game, and it is just a bad period for him, and the way to play out of it is don't change up too much. Now, what about NAIR? This has been, I've been so excited to talk about this, and I'm just so excited he's back in the IPL. And I guess if you're an Indian fan, or if you follow Indian cricket pretty closely, you would know the story of NAIR, and you'd probably actually know it better than I do if you really follow it. But if you're not, you might not know how crazy this guy's story is. And I actually, especially now that he's come back into the IPL and is doing so well in domestic, I will eventually make a full 30-minute documentary, which I want to start doing on this channel, just because his whole career path is absolutely insane. But I'm going to try shorten it here as much as possible and leave all the finer details for that video. So make sure you do subscribe and leave a comment if you want to see that, because I really do want to start getting into those types of videos as well. But let me summarize it as quickly as possible. He's pretty much had a really outstanding first-class career when he first started out and made the test team pretty early on, and he actually scored 303 not out in one of his first games. He then immediately got dropped and got brought back into the side, to be fair, only 6 months later, but it was halfway through the 2017 BGT. Then he only got dropped after 3 games, and to be fair, he only got 4 innings within that 3 games. He then went on a bit of a dry and a bit of a rough run, to be fair. By 2022, he was literally on Twitter making tweets such as, I think, yeah, cricket, please give me one more chance. That's how desperate he was getting. He didn't have an IPL team. He didn't even have a Ranji team. And then this year, I'm also paraphrasing, he's had some good years since then, but this year he was the 4th highest scorer in the Ranji Trophy, averaging 50s while winning the trophy, and now he has also come back into the IPL and obviously just smacked 89 off 40 in, yeah, his first IPL game in 3 years. Once again, Indian fans are probably way more aware of every transfer in the IPL and domestic scene, so they were probably ready for him to come back into the IPL, or more aware of it. I was not. I didn't even know he was going to play. I had no idea he was playing the game until I was watching the game and they started speaking about him coming into the game. So seeing him come out of absolutely nowhere and scoring 89 off 40 just put a smile on my face. And I think every cricket fan understands cricket is a beautiful sport for stories like this, for the down and out stories, the comeback stories. And it's really half the reason why I started making cricket content, and hopefully it continues on this upwards trajectory. Now, speaking of upwards trajectory, is this finally the win that gets Mumbai's season going? Because they have literally got all the signs of having a really good season, and they look like a great team on paper. They just can't get games over the line, I feel. Every single game that they have lost this season, you felt like, oh, they probably just should have conceded maybe 10 less runs with the ball. They just didn't bowl well enough. But then you also get that feeling with the bat. It feels like every single batsman, almost every single game, gets a start of about 15 to 30, but then no one goes on with it. And you just feel, oh, if they just could have scored 20 more runs in this game, they probably would have wrapped it up. I don't think there's actually anything wrong in terms of the personnel, in terms of tactics, or the approach they bring to chasing down a score is necessarily wrong. It legitimately feels like they're a cursed team at the moment. Like, they just can't finish a game. Every chaser, and they just keep losing wickets at crucial times. But then finally today, it felt like the opposite. I mean, I guess there was still the familiar theme of batsmen getting starts and maybe not converting into big scores, but at least these 20s were turned into 40s, and at least this time, Varma did go on to score about 60 odd. It really felt like this time they did score a little bit over par compared to other games where they just feel like they're at 10 under par, and they did a really good job of not losing wickets in huge clumps and keeping that strike rate ticking over. With the ball, they've actually been pretty solid in the final 5 overs of the game, really all season, but they have been poor in the power play pretty much all season as well. And this game actually wasn't too different to other games. They obviously did really well in the middle overs this time though, and I think that was a big difference, but I still think their big worry is leaking runs in the first 10 overs, because almost every game now, they are conceding a lot in the first 10 overs. And yes, they're bowling well in the final 5 to kind of restrict what could be a huge total, but again, I don't know if you can get away with that every single game. It only makes sense that we finish with SRH, because they are going to finish me. I have to ask the question to everyone that lives in Hyderabad, does everyone have heart issues? Because how do you watch this team week in, week out? Of course, after I speak about them in a long video and make a short of them, they just U-turn back into God mode again. What is going on with this team? I mean, it's like when you're playing the cricket video games and you can mess with the sliders to either make your timing on the ball and power on the ball either insanely easy or insanely hard, because we are literally only getting either end of the spectrum at the moment. Now, I don't want to be too negative in a historic win, but before I get to glazing the batters, I am still slightly worried about this bowling unit. Obviously, Shami has just broken the records for like the worst 4 overs in Sunrisers history, but I think the bowling unit as a whole is still really struggling to slow the scoring. Obviously, that pitch was a batsman's paradise and both teams scored big on it. But when you look at the runs conceded and the rate they are conceding it at, it's still not good. You're still getting the vibe that all the Sunrisers wins this year are going to come off the bat. So I guess we may as well just talk about the bat. And I got to be sorry to Travis Head, because normally when you score 66 off 37, I'm going to talk about it, but Jesus, Abhishek, 141 off 55 is an absolute joke. Just to list a few records he broke for the Sunrisers. Most runs off boundaries in a game with 116, beating Bairstow of 90. Most sixes in an innings for SRH, beating Warner's 10. And then also the highest score for SRH, beating Warner's 126. And all you can say on that innings, like, it's just schoolyard bullying. It was just some of the best hitting. Like, there's not much to say about technique, and he did this right. It was just absolute bullying, bashing, name it what you want. It was almost evil. He just absolutely smoked the bowlers. And it's always funny. It's the players that are the most out of form, the most down and out. Everyone's saying, including myself, he is just a shade of himself this season, and he comes out with one of the best innings we've seen in a long time. I mean, what do you say? I'll see you guys next week.